Amazingly enough, Brock, bowl season is upon us. Obviously, we're going to talk a little bit Army Navy, and then that's the last game before bowl season officially begins. We've got the Celebration Bowl coming up between the SWAC and MEAC champions. We've got Division II and FCS playoffs in full swing, semifinals approaching. But we can't move forward until we look back briefly. The college football playoff rankings, and of course the college football championships just took place. There's some controversy there. Brock, I don't know if you've heard. It appears that maybe things have gone in such a way that not everyone's 100% satisfied. Give me your thoughts on this matter, and then I want to hit on some of the bowl games that are particularly of interest to you.
Well, I think no matter what decision the committee made, no one was ever going to be 100% satisfied. But there was a clear decision that should have been made that would have fulfilled the criteria of what we as college football fans are looking for in terms of a national championship playoff. And that is the teams that did what they were supposed to do are in the last dance. That did not happen. Florida State got absolutely screwed. And I have a vested interest in this because I like the University of Alabama. I enjoy watching Alabama football. And as previously mentioned, I have Alabama national championship winning ticket for a bet. So I'm pro Alabama in this scenario. So I'll make that very clear. And for anyone that's doubting me, you can look back at our previous show and you can see that ticket all for yourself. With that being said, what the committee did was absolutely reprehensible. There is no justification for leaving out Florida State. What did Florida State do wrong besides play football and win? And before you guys say, oh, Jordan Travis got injured, therefore they're not a good team, I counter that by saying the committee already set a precedent in the first ever college football playoff when they allowed Ohio State to be in the Final Four over TCU and Baylor, who had the same exact record as them. And I know the argument is, okay, but Ohio State played in conference championship weekend. What does that have to do with anything? Honestly. Like we're just jumping through hoops to fit an agenda. If the committee came out and said we picked these 4 teams because we believe that these 4 would make the most entertaining, financially lucrative matchups, I could live with it because you're being honest about your own greed. But to say that to go around and around and make these excuses here in and here out about why you have teams ranked where they were, even going back to it, Oregon was number 5 in the country because Bo Nix is passing. It was ridiculous. The committee, since the dawn of time, has continuously made excuses to fit their own agenda, and this was nothing new. I'm so sick and tired of it. I'm grateful that this is the last ever edition of the 14 playoffs, so now we can go to the expanded playoff, so we don't have to talk about this anymore. But I just feel for those young men, those young Seminoles, who will not get the opportunity to play in the college football playoff again. It's unfortunate for them because they worked so hard throughout their entire career. They worked so hard in the offseason. They did everything right. They made sure that all their responsibilities were taken care of. And in the end, grown people decided to screw college kids. And that is something I just cannot stomach.
Yeah. First of all, the things that leapt to mind when I heard about this was that I'm not shocked. I mean, I'd like to say I'm shocked, but I'm not even shocked. I remember the first thing I heard was, as soon as it all said, I promise you Alabama's in. I heard people saying, oh, maybe no SEC. No, they'll be an SEC school, and I promise you that. I didn't know who was getting screwed. I wasn't sure about that, but I could tell you. It's like, I promise you Alabama's in. So name brand matters. The beauty pageant, or whatever you want to call it, figure skating, whatever term you want to use, matters, right? As much as wins and losses and all that kind of stuff. And as you said, luckily, we don't have to have this particular kind of a debate again in the future. I want to hit briefly, and I'll talk about it a little bit more when Donovan joins us, on the future of the PAC2+. PAC2+MW equals question mark. But at least for one calendar year, I mean, at least until the end of 2024, Oregon State and Washington State, essentially the PAC2, have made a deal with the Mountain West. It's not a full-on merger. It's not an acquisition. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's above a sneaky link because it's public and everything. It's I guess they're friends with benefits. The Pac 2 and the Mountain West are now officially friends with benefits. And in this arrangement where everyone is mutually benefiting, those Mountain West teams will schedule the Pac 2, and the Pac 2 will give them $14 million. Not a bad deal, I guess, for everybody. It will last until the 2025 season, and it only applies to football. Football only, doesn't apply to baseball, basketball, field hockey, wrestling, any other sport. And Gloria Navarez, the Mountain West commissioner, apparently is hoping to make it more. She wants to make it official, apparently, where they fully, are absorbed, or whatever term you want to use, into the Mountain West. Since they own the rights apparently to the Pac 12, I don't know why it wouldn't just become the Pac 12 at that point. I think the 2 remaining schools own the licensing, I believe, to the name Pac 12, I guess. Since, who else would own it at this point? Right? If you're the last 2 standing. So I'll be interested to see what comes out of that long term. You're obviously a guy that knows a lot about both conferences. How do you feel about it, Brock?
I think it's the right move. Realistically, Oregon State and Washington State are essentially operating as a super financed independent is the best way to put it when it comes to scheduling. Because, they're still getting a huge revenue share percentage that the Pac-12 is still entitled to, but they still got to figure out their schedule. I think it's the right move. Traveling costs are down. They still play against a competitive team. Mountain West does have a very solid TV deal, so it makes a lot of sense. I think that this is laying the groundwork for a super conference. Now, how is that going to go down in terms of naming rights and everything? I'm not too sure. I don't think the Pac-12 has hit his death point yet. It's just death as we know it, because we won't see a lot of these historic programs. But I think you're going to see a transition period. I think right now, the conference that should be shaking its boots is the Big Sky of the FCS. Because I see the new Pac-12 Mountain West conglomerate, coalition, friends of benefits, open relationship, whatever you want to call it, expanding. Just in the way college football is expanding. I think that there are some very interesting programs that would be, what's the right term? Intriguing to see at the FBS level. Programs like Montana State, Sacramento State, even though they might not have the seating capacity, just because I am a lover of chaos, Eastern Washington, and their god-awful Redfield. And by bringing back Idaho into the fold, who has done a great job since returning to the FCS level. And I think that it's essentially going to become a have and have-nots kind of thing, where they might have an open division. They might go back to split divisions. They might have it to, maybe they might throw in a relegation system. Who knows, if we're just talking crazy, where like there's a Pac-12 and then there's the Mountain West, and the bottom part of the Pac-12 drops to the Mountain West, and the top of the Mountain West drops to goes up to the Pac. I don't know. But what I am saying is that the door of possibilities is wide open. Now, I wrote an article here for Team NBS Media several months ago when this news first came out about the Pac-12. They said that Washington State should embrace the Pac-12 or embrace the Mountain West, because for the first time since like that 1 year with Mike Leach, they have a legitimate shot of being a perennial playoff team just due to the ease of schedule. I can say the same thing about Oregon State. As a matter of fact, Oregon State might be in a better position to do that. These teams who would have to put together incredible seasons to make the playoffs now just have to win out games that they should win anyway. I think that a lot of teams are going to benefit. I think that Fresno State is going to benefit a lot. I think that they have a tremendous amount of talent in the Valley that if they can keep home by the fact that they can promise that they're going to be competing for a playoff spot, that you're going to see the rise of the Bulldogs. I think Brett Brennan of San Jose State can look really good. And it's time to shine the light on the amount of talent in California, Oregon, Washington, the Pacific West Coast. A lot of guys are leaving because they're not getting the opportunities to go and compete for these big titles. Now they might. So I'm all for it. I think it was a smart move after a long series of idiotic decisions, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's next.
Okay. I'm excited about the future for a couple of different reasons, and I'll walk through why. Uh, you have I've always been a fan of Fresno State, right? I've been a fan of Fresno State since I first became aware that Fresno State existed. Something about that team, and especially when Pat Hill got there. Once Pat Hill took over, they were one of those teams that would play anybody, any place, anywhere. They developed a lot of really good offensive linemen. They ran back when the term pro style meant something, because now, anytime a team has a tailback and or a fullback on the roster, we just call them pro style no matter what they're doing on offense. But in those days, it was really pro style. Like guys would go from Pat Hill's offense and then go to where they went in the NFL. And I've seen most of this stuff before. I've seen 70% of this stuff before. I understand what's going on here. So, that's different because they've gone spread like everybody has. But in the old days, the offenses that were the easiest to transition from where you were in college to in the NFL were not in any particular order, but Fresno was right up there with Purdue, with Stanford, as offenses that, all this stuff is very familiar to me. I'm going to be fine. I mean, you might flop, but it wasn't because your mind was blown. Like these concepts were all fairly new to you. Not new to you. Most of these concepts are not new to you. I'm excited also, as you said, for people like Brett Brennan, for some of the coaching. There's some good coaches in the Mountain West, some very good coaches. I mean, we just saw Boise State, and once again, shout out to Boise State, a team that I think it's the first time in the whatever era. What is this era called again? The college football playoff era, I guess, that a team has an interim coach has won a conference playoff game, championship game. And Coach Spencer Danielson is one of the bright young coaches that smart people have their eye on. Fresno was in an interesting situation because Tedford is taking medical leave of absence. I don't know what the official word is yet, but he stepped away from the program, at least for the immediate future. But he hasn't officially been, he's still an employee. Apparently he's still listed as head coach. He just is taking a year off or something. I don't know. I'll have to do a little more digging, but it appears that he will not be involved in the day-to-day operations of the football team for at least the upcoming season. So that means that whoever that is, and I know who the interim is, but I don't know if they're going to. I don't know. I guess they'll just they have a weird situation because it seems like they're just going to have this person coach for a year. I don't know. I have to do some more digging. But whoever it is that ends up being the coach at Fresno State, other than Tedford, if it's one of the younger members of the staff, and at least the person who's the interim as of now, if they hold on to that job and Fresno still has let's say a 9 or 10 win season, that person's name should become a fairly hot commodity. So there's a lot of good young coaches there. Yeah. Obviously, you and I both will miss the Pac-12 as it was, as God intended it. But I'm excited for what is coming forward, and I think this is really good news for people like your UNLV Rebels. I think that UNLV, first of all, it's a major media market. It's one of the fastest growing parts of the country. There's good football being played in that area, especially at the high school level. Some of the couple of elite programs are right there. This increased attention and increased access to the college football playoffs comes at exactly the right time for a program like UNLV. So, kudos to you for not immediately going with the UNLV angle. But I think that one of the big winners in all this is probably the University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
Yeah, and when you look at what UNLV has going for them, they have Allegiant Stadium as their home field. So they have NFL quality facilities. They have a great football complex. And like you mentioned, from a recruiting standpoint, they're in a great market. They also have a great coaching staff. Barry Odom seems, with his son committing to UNLV, it seems like he's committed to the program for the near future. Brennan Marion is a name that I'm surprised is still on UNLV because I'm surprised no one else has plugged him yet for what he's done this season. And it's just, it goes back to what has always been, and that is the West Coast football has been a breeding ground of potential. That's what it's always been. And I think that a lot of the teams that left for other conferences might not be happy with their situations in about 3 to 4 years down the line. I don't think UCLA is going to enjoy their time in the Big Ten when they're just going to be from West Coast Illinois. And no offense.
Oh, I love that.
I know that.
Let's make those T-shirts and sell them.
Yes, absolutely. It is. I mean, I know how much you have an affinity for the Proud program in Champaign, Illinois. I know you worked in that program as a GA before. They have a very sound structure, a beautiful history, but they're not competitive in the current landscape, except for that last year when the Brown brothers and Devon Witherspoon and Jatavius Martin
when that team that Lovie Smith put together but was not allowed to coach.
Which was probably the reason why they were so successful. Maybe if Lovie Smith came back as like the director of recruiting, Illinois might be a powerhouse. But UCLA, we just saw them lose, I think 33-6 to Cal.
Correct.
They're not going to do great in the Big Ten. I have doubts about Oregon doing great in the Big Ten. I have doubts about Washington doing great in the Big Ten.
Washington's the one I think probably has the best chance to do well.
I agree.
But I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I have it Washington, USC, Oregon, UCLA as potential. And before all the Oregon Duck fans get mad at me, name one signature win by Dan Lanning.
How about two signature close calls, like games they made very competitive?
Yeah, I guess you can say that because Alabama got to the playoff by winning a whole bunch of games and being somewhat in the ballpark against Texas. So maybe that's a criteria we're going with now. But realistically, when you factor all the travel that they have to do, we talk about the top competition they have to do, we talk about the weather element that these programs are going to have to go through, there is a clear disadvantage. And you can even say that for Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah when they go into the Big 12, even though that's a much more easier conference to assimilate. When Mike Gundy pulls that little sprinkle of magic out of his hat like he does 3 times a year in Stillwater, and you randomly lose to him, you're not going to be real happy. When Willie Fritz and Houston comes out firing next year, you're not going to be happy. Which great hire by them, by the way. I did not have them.
Fantastic hire.
Did not have him on the short list, but you know what? Hey, great hire. But I think that you're gonna run into some obstacles you may have not foreseen. I think for that list, I have Arizona, Utah, Colorado, Arizona State in my list of easiest teams to assimilate. And then I think the big one is ACC. Cal and Stanford are not going to survive in the ACC. And I hate to say it. And it's not because the teams are terrible, even though they are. It's not because, the programs are terrible, even though they are. It's the fact that you have to continuously travel across the country with college students for 12 weeks. Do you don't think that's going to take a toll on their health? You don't think that's going to take a toll on their mental health? You don't think that's going to take a toll on their studies, especially at high academic institutions? Use logic. For schools that are so academically inclined or hold themselves to such high standards, you don't think having a football team fly across the country week after week, getting banged up, bruised, and then having to come home and fulfill the commitments with their school, with film, with practice, with whatever, you don't think that's going to take a toll on your already not successful programs? I think that you're going to see them exit the ACC a lot sooner than you expect. So I think a lot of these teams that left the Pac-12 are going to experience buyer's remorse very soon. And we could see a lot of them return to the Pac-2, I guess now, sooner rather than later, as the Pac-2 and the Mountain West now finalize their next TV contract.
That's interesting you should mention that, because I was trying to figure out who ends up going back home as well. Like, that was also on my mind. So I'm going to agree with you that I think that Cal and Stanford makes sense. I won't be shocked if at some point maybe we see either Oregon or Oregon State, more likely Oregon State. Also, maybe at some point say, maybe that Pac-12, whatever it is, thing wasn't so bad anyway. I could see them at some point realizing that maybe the grass is not greener all the way 3,200 miles east of you. Yeah. After they've gotten just dragged all over the place in Tallahassee, Florida for a few hours, I could see somebody saying, yeah, this isn't as much fun as I thought it'd be. But then there's the money part. Yeah. And I mean, if the money gets close, I could see them maybe, like you said, saying, okay, well, this if it's only a few $100,000, it sounds funny saying only a few hundred, but if it's only a few $100,000 difference per season, maybe, especially with what you're spending on travel and all this stuff. Okay.
And I want to make another point. Let's say these teams have success and they make the conference championship games. Do you think your fan base is going to be able to travel to Arlington, Texas, to Indianapolis, to Raymond James Stadium in Florida for your conference championship games? So no matter what, you're always going to be at disadvantage, even when you're the cream of the crop. What benefit is that going to have after the lure of financial gain wears off? I think that when you start to realize that you're not going to be the teams hosting college football playoff games, you're not going to be the team that's the top dog in your conference. You're not going to be comfortable playing in Ann Arbor in December or Columbus in December. You're not going to be the team that wants to play in Tallahassee.
Even yeah. I mean, like, West Lafayette's no fun to play in at the end of November either.
or even the flip side. You want to play West Lafayette in September? You really think you can handle the stickiness of those places? I'm just saying, climate plays a factor in football, and none of these teams play in a dome.
Yeah, early season games like week 3. Playing, here comes those guys in orange running down the stadium, touching Howard's Rock. It's 81 degrees at kickoff time. And say what you want about Clemson. That's still nothing but 4 and 5 stars, 3 deep. Yeah, that might not be the most fun for you, Cal. That might not be the most fun for you, Stanford.
Yeah, I think people have this delusion that the ACC is a diluted conference, which is not even remotely close to the point. Florida State, we just talked about them. They're 13-0 right now. Clemson's problem isn't talent, it's coaching, right? So all Dabo needs to do is bring in the right coordinators, and he's going to be right back to where he needs to be.
Back, yep.
You know, I mean, Hadley, I'm not saying they're great, but Hadley and Boston College exceeded my very low expectations for them. You know, do y'all want to play at Chop? Do you guys want to go down and play Mac Brown? Chapel Hill,
another team full of talent, man. That's a team that that's the thing about a team like Carolina. They might beat anybody. They might lose anybody, but they might beat anybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens with that. That'll be an interesting transition.
And last point, Virginia Tech is on the rise again. In about 2 years, they're going to be like how they were in the Frank Beamer with Brett Pry.
They'll go back to being an 8-9 and occasionally 10-win team.
You want to go? You want to go play a bunch of 3-star defenders that feel like they've been unranked or undervalued, underranked.
So have something to prove. Have something to let the world know. Yeah,
you have 11 camp chancellors on that field right to knock your head off.
Yeah, well, luckily you're not allowed to hit people like that anymore. For them, luckily for them. But yeah, I wanted to hit on some also of the most intriguing, at least intriguing to you, bowl matchups. I'll let you, I guess, kick off receive. I guess I'm kicking off. You'll be receiving. Give me your top, 4 or 5, however many games that you want to see in bowl season and why.
Oh, that's a great question because there's so many great bowl games. But I guess I'm going to kick it off because I am a lover of chaos. And I'm going to kick it off with the Texas Bowl, and that will be Texas A&M versus Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State right now possesses a tremendous offense and no defense. And it's truly one of the massive enigmas that they was able to win 9 games, despite losing 33-7 at home to South Alabama. What Mike Gundy did this year defies logic. I honestly don't know what to say because they went 7-2 in conference play. They beat a ranked Kansas at a ranked Oklahoma. They also beat Kansas State, who was pretty good. And then they lose 45-3 to UCF. And they also lose to Iowa State. It makes no sense at all. How Ollie Gordon is not a Heisman finalist is absolutely criminal. how Alex Bowman is a starting quarterback, but also is equally criminal. What we saw in the Big 12 championship game was like if Daryl LaMonica did not have a strong arm. It was just chuck it and see how far as it goes, and hopefully Presley can make a play. Yet that brand of offense scored enough points that a defense that allowed over 30 points in 9 different contests this season came through for them. It's honestly ridiculous. On the flip side, A&M is in this massive transition period. They're going to be missing a bunch of stars, but they have a somewhat competent defense. This Henderson kid at quarterback, the Fresno State transfer, is really good. Actually, at least a lot better than I expected. They continually move the ball. How Elijah Robinson isn't remaining on that staff is honestly as more criminal than what I said about Gordon and Bowman. And I think that the Aggies are going to play hard for him, being the fact this is his final game before he goes up to Syracuse to be their defensive coordinator. So I'm looking forward to that game. I'm looking forward to the Cotton Bowl, Ohio State and Missouri. Missouri has had a very underrated season. Cook is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in college football. How people have not been talking about him more is ridiculous.
He had a great season, bro, and nobody talked about it.
Nobody's talking about it. It's ridiculous. Missouri as a team has done really well. Drinkwitz has redeemed himself, and we're starting to see the elements of what he had in his 1 year at Appalachian State and how that is finally transitioning to SEC play. And then for Ohio State, who's going to be the quarterback? McCord just hit the portal. I don't know if Harrison Jr. is playing. I don't know if Ibuka is going to play. So who's going to be that receiver to step up for them? And if Ryan Day loses the Cotton Bowl to Missouri, you just know it's going to be Columbus might set itself on fire. So I'm looking forward to that game.
No more beard dye for you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking forward to Ole Miss and Penn State in the Peach Bowl. Ole Miss possesses a great offense that we all know. Penn State lost some guys due to draft preparation. Drew Aller is going to have all spotlights on him, and when he's had that in the past, he hasn't exactly played up to standard. So I'm interested to see how that's going to work. But the crucial part is that defense coordinator Manny Diaz just took the Duke job, so he won't be coaching in this game. So this is kind of like a testing period for James Franklin, because he already lost his offensive coordinator. He fired him. He lost his defensive coordinator. We're going to see these two gentlemen that have taken the roles. Are they going to be the permanent replacement, or is he going to go out and make some changes to his coaching staff? I think that this game could be very revealing. However, if Franklin wins and Kiffin loses, the question for Kiffin now becomes, can Kiffin win a big game? It's been something that's been haunting him in the past. He kind of got the monkey off his back by beating LSU, but who knows? I'm looking forward to see how that storyline kind of develops. I'm looking forward to New Mexico State versus Fresno State because I'm a sicko. The game is in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Obviously, Tedford stepping down. Diego Paiva is not a – I don't even think he's a quarterback. I think he's just a football player because that dude will lay the lumber at any moment for no discernible reason.
Is it true that Paiva is what is that? Tongan? No, not Tongan. What is that?
I think Samoan.
Samoan. Is that Samoan for? Is that perhaps Samoan for Tebow? Is that something that might be Samoan for Tebow?
Maybe not as much Christianity in there, but potentially. You know, I think it might be Samoan for bigger Matt Corral. Is the best way to put it. But
I like that.
But Jerry Kill's done with that program is fantastic. They play in the Conference USA.
That's my coach of the year. That's my coach of the year. I mean, Willie Fritz did a fantastic job, but I think my coach of the year might be Jerry Kill. Overcoming what he overcame, his own medical history, and then to take over what was probably one of the bottom 6 programs in all of FBS and to do what he's done. Hats off to Jerry Kill.
Yeah, I mean, well done to him. And the fact that they lost to the Don Brown and UMass in the season opener and that was able to rebound the way they did, it's just a credit to the coaching staff, the mental strength of the team, and just the desire to win, as you saw with their thrashing of Auburn in Jordan Hare. The last game I just want to touch on real quick before we move on, I will have to go with, oh my goodness, there's so many great bowl games, but okay, I'm sorry, I got to name two. Arizona versus Oklahoma. Arizona is a team that I thought should have went to the New Year's Six. I think that they possess one of the most promising rosters and coaching staffs in all of college football. I love what they've done with Fafita. I love the receiving core of Cowling. I don't know if Cowling's playing, but I believe he is. Teteriah McMillan and Lamonius Craig. And there's another dude that's in there. Jonah Coleman is one of the most underrated running backs in the country. They have a really good defense that plays hard till the final whistle, even when they're up. They kind of taken on this attitude in the final weeks of the season. They blew out Arizona State. Like, it was bad. Like, we knew it was gonna happen, but it was bad. The way they manhandled Utah, and then just to rub it in their face, scored a touchdown in the end was kind of funny. And this is a program on the rise that I think will be in the national championship conversation in 2024. With that being said, Oklahoma will also be in the national championship conversation. Dylan Gabriel just entered the portal because Oklahoma believes Jackson Arnold is the quarterback of the future. This is going to be our opportunity to kind of see him play and see what he's got and see if Brett Venables and his staff made the right decision. They did lose Jeff Levy to Mississippi State. That's not really that big of a loss in my opinion. He kind of sucks. He's actually really terrible. Mississippi State goes 4-8 for the next 4 years. Don't get mad at me. When Mississippi State brings in Art Briles to be their offensive coordinator because they can't get anything going, don't get mad at me. But that's going to be very interesting to see how that happens. Oklahoma still possesses a very, very good defense. Clashing of styles. Styles makes fights. This is going to be a fight. Last one is, I don't know how this happened. The Sun Bowl of El Paso, one of the most beautiful creations on the planet, is hosting Oregon State, Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman tries to go for a second consecutive bowl win. Notre Dame's wrapping up what has been a largely successful season for them. A bit disappointing, but I think that they're going to have all systems go. Oregon State's defensive coordinator is now their head coach, so the players have something to play for. I think this is going to be a strong defensive matchup, a lot of punts, a lot of field position. I see Notre Dame coming out victorious in this, but it's so nice to see these two big programs descend on what us sickos love, and that is the Sun Bowl. Whoever decided to put a stadium inside a mountain was genius. And the fact we had to see the gold helmets of the Irish, the ferocity of the Beavers, I love it. Those are the bowl games that I'm looking forward to. But with that being said, I love every bowl game. I will be watching every bowl game. Like I said, I'm a sicko. This is draft prep season. God, I love college football.
Yeah, I'm super jazzed for all the ones you mentioned. And then I have to be honest, I love the slightly off-brand bowl games, but particularly the ones that have really interesting matchups. And there's some fascinating matchups in some of these. And I'll start with another one that is a bit of a tie to the show, I guess you could say. SMU gets a little bit of a slice of the life of an ACC team because they're going to face their future conference mates, very soon to future conference mates, Boston College. And I think that that's going to be a really interesting game. And I'm still doing some work on that game. I mean, I think SMU has a real advantage when it comes to like team speed and things like that. But that'll be in the ever popular Fenway Bowl and Wasabi Fenway Bowl, because those are two things I always associate together: the traditional stadium where the Boston Red Sox play, and of course, Wasabi. So
nothing says culture like the proud people of Boston, Massachusetts, and Asian culture.
Yes, that's exactly what comes to mind right away is Asian cuisine when I think Boston.
Yeah, if you told Mark Wahlberg this 20 years ago, he might commit another hate crime.
So, oh boy, I knew we had at least one of these somewhere in the show. But I am very intrigued to see how that game's going to play out. Boston College, here's a fun fact: has actually played 76 games in their college football history at Fenway Park. So for them, it's semi-home game, obviously. And The Eagles of Boston College are 14-13 overall in bowl games. They were last in a bowl game in 2020 when they were in the Birmingham Bowl, and they lost to Cincinnati and got kind of slapped around, to be perfectly honest. And the next year they were selected to be in the Military Bowl, but that ended up being canceled due to COVID-19. And the last time they won is the Quick Lane Bowl 2016 when they beat the Maryland Terrapins, a thriller, actually. I remember that game, 30-26. The Eagles are coming to this game 6-6. They did win 5 of the last 6 to get to bowl eligibility, which is great for them. But I have a feeling they're not going to be 500 for long. I think SMU sort of displays to everyone that they'll be just fine in the ACC in this game. But they did have 7 ACC. Boston College had 7 ACC all-conference selections, and they do have a really good run game. They average 193.5 yards per game rushing, so they can run it. Kyle Robichaux and their quarterback Tom Castellanos himself, who are both threats. Castellanos is a guy who's really interesting. I don't know if he's a pro prospect at running back, but he might be a guy who's a potential position switch at the next level. And of course, SMU comes in on a high. They beat a very good Tulane in their championship game. They're 11-2, and I think they're one of the better 11-win programs in the country. And I'm including whoever you would like to include. I think that they would give Oklahoma all at once if they played them. I think they would give Florida State all they would want, especially now. I think pick somebody. They would beat a lot of. I'd love to see them face Ole Miss, right? There's a lot of programs that we think of as being traditionally good programs that they would be right there with them. I could see them even coming out with a win. I think that you got to see their young quarterback Kevin Hall. It was his last name. And you could see why they weren't so worried about losing their starting quarterback. Speaking of losing your starting quarterback. But you could see his inexperience in places, but his talent was obvious. He has a strong arm. He's a guy that led his high school team to a state championship. He's a good runner. And SMU is currently ranked number 17. I think that may be about 5 or 6 notches too low, but whatever. Still, they had a really heck of a season, and I'll be interested to see, like I said, how this plays out.
I just want to take a second because he's associated with the show. Alex Brown, director of recruiting. Congratulations to him and what he's done with that program and the roster in general. People that watched the show last year knows that I was not high on Rick Lashley at all. At all.
Right.
When Alex came on the show, he kind of sold me on him, but I was very skeptical. Undefeated in conference play, was blowing out teams out of the water.
Yep.
They went with the non-conventional route, sticking with a high school pipeline quarterback instead of trying to pluck somebody out of the portal, and it paid off phenomenal for them. Their receiving core is outstanding.
Very good, yes.
And I think SMU is going to be they're criminally disrespected. They weren't even in the top 25, I think, until conference championship week.
Which is just ridiculous. Ridiculous.
So I think they're going to be a team that could be potentially on the playoff radar.
They ought to be. On offense, they averaged 40.6 points per game and had 28 rushing touchdowns, which is third most in the program's history. And that includes when they were a triple option team for a long time. They scored at least 55 points 4 times this year, 528 yards on the season. And on defense, they had 47 sacks, which is second highest in the program's history. They averaged in conference play. They won by an average of 28.9 points. So they averaged scoring 45.9 points and allowed 17 points per game in conference. So they were utterly dominant. Their coach, as you mentioned, is one of the finalists for the Eddie Robinson Award. And there was not a lot really to criticize about that team, to be perfectly honest. They are good top to bottom. And frankly, better days are coming. They are beginning to win more and more recruiting battles, both in the initial recruitment coming out of high school, but also at the, that second cut of recruitment coming in, obviously in almost a college free agency in the transfer portal. They're going to be a very attractive landing spot for a lot of young men who, for whatever reason, weren't happy at their initial landing spot, because you're right there in the Dallas Metroplex. It's fantastic facilities, and they win a lot of football games. So that's one of my favorites.
And they play a very popular brand of football.
Yeah,
that's the also crucial part.
Right, it is. It's a fun brand of football to play. Rhett Lashley took a lot of the stuff that he learned from people like Malzahn and sexied it up, for lack of a better way to put it. Then another one that I'm super jazzed and excited about, and you just mentioned Virginia Tech a second ago, Tulane, the team that lost in the AAC championship to SMU, faces Virginia Tech. And that will be a very interesting game, because Virginia Tech, as you said, is a program heading in the right direction, program on the rise. And Tulane, obviously just lost Willie Fritz, but that's another really talented program. It'll be sort of a defense versus offense kind of thing. Not that Tulane is terrible on defense, but Virginia Tech is built on defense. That's one thing that hasn't changed. No matter who coaches that team, it's sort of defense first and everything else after. But they are starting to look better on offense. Like, they no longer are an embarrassment on offense as they have been for a little while. And that's the Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium, of course, in Annapolis. And as the moment, Tulane is 7.5 point underdogs, which surprises me. I don't know. I know unrest in the program, but I still might take that action. The over-under is 46.5. I might take the under, and I might take Tulane. Obviously, they're coming off a 26-14 loss to SMU, and they dropped in the rankings a little bit. And that playoff 6 spot they were trying to get to went to Liberty. Right. They lost Coach Fritz, who is, going to be, I think, very successful. But they do have Slade Nagel, Slade Nagel, assistant head coach, offensive coordinator Slade Nagel, who is a good coach also, is going to be the interim coach. And they are currently are 7-8 in bowl games, and Virginia Tech went 6-6 this year. Brent Pry finally started to turn them around. They did have 3 non-conference losses, but they closed out a huge blowout victory in the Commonwealth Cup over Virginia. They have momentum. I think that it'll be an interesting game. I just don't know why people are. And I like Virginia Tech as a program. I don't see them as being this overwhelming favorite, though. 7.5 seems a little high, but
it's a tad, just a tad.
Right. Tulane is 5-8 against the spread, so I guess that's maybe slightly why Vegas is not a big fan of theirs. They failed to cover the number by an average of 3.9 points per game, and 0-1 in their only game as an underdog when they lost by 17 as a 13-point dog to Ole Miss. That was a very competitive game. I hope people don't read too much into that. But Virginia Tech's 7-5 against the spread, average coverage margin of a touchdown, and I think the main thing is that both teams, like I said, can make things happen on defense. The big thing that I would worry about if I'm Virginia Tech is that Tulane's 7th in the country in rushing yards allowed per game, 93.5. And they also can get to the quarterback. They have a good pass rush, and they average 2.62 sacks per game. Tulane's 23-4 over the last 2 seasons, and to me, they have more than enough talent to make this game a really, competitive game. I'll be shocked, frankly, if Virginia Tech does win and covers. And then another one that really interests me is the Las Vegas Bowl. Utah and Northwestern are sort of a study in styles. Interesting to see how that sort of in the SRS distribution, Las Vegas Bowl. And, the Utah was, 8-4 this year. They are a team that, if things had turned out slightly differently, could have maybe been a 10-win team. They have been bedeviled by injury and a few other things, but I just like them a lot in this game. Northwestern will make it tough because Northwestern makes it tough on everybody, but they just don't have the talent. I mean, they have maybe 8 players who could crack the 2 deep at Utah. And, they have 1 or 2 guys that are definite pro prospects. Utah has probably, just on defense alone, 2 or 3 guys. I mean, I don't know why Luther Ellis doesn't get discussed more, quite frankly, as one of the best players and defensive players in college football. But they have a really good defense. I think that Utah ends up winning that probably by about 10 points, but I'm going to watch it and be very interested to see how Northwestern looks. It'll be just, first of all, impressive they got to 7-5. When you think about all that, we talk about some programs having to show mental toughness. They definitely had to. And then, Kyle Whittingham is an interesting character, a guy that certainly has had opportunities to leave and just seems to like it there. It's a rematch of the Holiday Bowl 2018, where Northwestern actually won 31-20. And, both teams are going to play, quote unquote, complementary football, physical, probably fairly low scoring. But yeah, I'll be interested to see that one. And then a couple more that I want to hit on. UTSA versus Marshall in the Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl. Love these names. But those are truly interesting teams to me. I'm just fascinated by the UTSA program. They have so many players that are better than people realize. When these guys get into the NFL, people are like, "Oh, who was that? Where did he come from?" In terms of ranked average per game, Marshall scores 23.3 points per game. UTSA scores 31.7, and then Marshall allows 28.2 points per game, 85th in the country, while at 55th in the country, UTSA averages 24.7. Marshall also has a lot more turnovers at 20-15, and have only forced 12, which is 2 more than UTSA has forced. UTSA is a team that's covered 5 in their 12 games with the spread, and when playing as 10 or more point favorites, they are 3-2. They have hit the over 4 out of 12 times so far this season, and this contest totals is 54.5. I feel like that's a little high. I feel like this game will be a little lower scoring than that. I think that Marshall will play them very, very tough. But UTSA is just, that's a really good football team. And I just think people don't know enough about them or see them often enough or whatever it is. Individual players to look for. On Marshall's side, Cam Fancher, 2,162 yards passing, 65.4% completion. He started 10 of the 12 games this season. 11 touchdowns, 11 receptions. That's the one thing that sort of worries you is he's allowed to, he's given up some of those interceptions were not, some were fluky, 2 or 3, but 8 of those he definitely earned. Also has 276 yards rushing, even once you take out the sack yardage. Rasheen Ali is back from a year away, dealing with personal issues, and is back being Rasheen Ali. 94.8 yards rushing per game, 14 touchdowns, 28 catches. They've used him more in the passing game this year, 213 yards receiving. A couple of years ago, before his time away from the team, he definitely helped me win. I got him towards the end of a college football, fantasy football draft, and he was one of the people that helped me win my all-time misfits college football fantasy team. So, league. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Ali. Ethan Payne is number 2 in rushing with 301 yards and 72 carries. And DeMarcus Harris has caught 24 passes, 296 yards and a touchdown. Caleb Coombs, 39 receptions for 310 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dayton Harris, 23.2 yards per game, 22 receptions, 278 yards and a touchdown. They don't really have a alpha at receiver. They sort of spread it around. And then UTSA has one of the most underrated quarterbacks in college football. Frank Harris can get no love and no respect for reasons I'm not sure I understand. But he's 64.9 completion percentage, 18 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, averaging a little over 250, in fact, 250.6, I believe, yards passing per game. 86 rushes, once again, subtracting out sack yardage, 323 net yards, 4 touchdowns. And they also have Kavarian Barnes, who's 698 yards rushing as the leading rusher. He shares the load with Robert Henry, 551 yards, 113 carries, 9 touchdowns. Their best receiver is Joshua Cephas, who is a sneaky good receiver. I think he's accepted his Senior Bowl invitation. So people who aren't aware of him may become aware of him, but he's really good. 81 receptions for 1,047 yards and 9 touchdowns. Tyke Ogle-Kellogg 521 yards receiving, and then Devin McQuinn, 518 yards receiving, 39 touchdowns. Sorry, 39 receptions and 3 touchdowns. And those are all guys that are potentially, I mean, they have speed. Every one of those guys can run. Cephas is a guy that also is good at contested catches. The last two I want to hit on before we move on to whatever. I do want to mention that I'm very intrigued and very interested in the ever popular, often imitated but never duplicated Independence Bowl. California and Justin Wilcox have made their way to a bowl game despite some ugly losses, quite frankly. There are 5 places where they mention, 5 to 10 places where they say, oh, it's one of the hardest places to win. And Cal is usually somewhere on the list of hardest places to win. They last reached bowl games in consecutive seasons, once again, under Wilcox also in 2018, 2019. He survived rumors and innuendos about him being replaced or fired or whatever, and he's still there. They took a 3-year absence, and now they're back. Jaden Knott, of course, is their best player. He could do a little bit of everything. He can catch the ball, he can run the ball, he's good in blitz pickup. He's just a future pro. Texas Tech is in their 3rd straight bowl game, and last time they did that was the Mike Leach era. They have a tendency to win. One of the best bowl records you'll find, my friend, is Texas Tech. They're 11-4. I think they might end up being 12-4. I think it'll be a good game, but I think Texas Tech will end up prevailing. I'm also intrigued by Oregon Liberty. But anything else you want to mention before we close this baby out, Mr. Brock Vieira?
Yeah. Yes. Cal is a program that I follow closely, as some people can see with my work. Justin Wilcox getting extended was one of the most boneheaded decisions I've ever seen in my life. Only at Cal can you lose have three straight years in which you don't even qualify for a bowl game and keep your job. Not only keep your job, get an extension. And the only reason Justin Wilcox is still in charge is because Cal has no money and his last name is Wilcox. What the Golden Bears have done to their own program is so frustrating. I just want to rip my hair out. You had your starting quarterback in Fernando Mendoza start the season off as the 3rd stringer. Why? Because his play style didn't fit your offense or fit Jake Spidval's offense, and now Spidval's at Baylor. You have a crown jewel at running back in Jaden Ott. You have some really decent defenders kind of capped off by Jackson Sermon, and yet you're a habitual loser. How is that acceptable? I have been saying for the longest time, if Cal wants to be successful again, they need to go and get Brett Brennan from San Jose State. He's a guy that knows how to win with limited resources. He's a guy that knows how to recruit in both the high school and in the transfer portal. And he's a guy that can bring out the most out of your talent. But instead, they want to keep shoving $3 million to a guy that will, at best, get you 7 wins a season. It's just mind-boggling to me. For Texas Tech, I don't know how to feel about them because they came into the season with such lofty expectations. I had them ranked in my preseason top 25, and they just haven't lived up to it. Tyler Show's in the portal. I think now he's going to Louisville. The team just hasn't really been explosive, in my opinion, and they don't really have any signature victories on the year. So this is kind of a game of who can suck less, and that's all I'm going to say about that. The last thing I want to say before we wrap up is that I just want to say thank you to all the players, coaches, support staff, administrators, whatever, for putting together another great year of college football. I can't believe we're already at its end. It feels like just yesterday we were getting ready for week 0, and I'm a little bit sad about it. Obviously, we're now in winter, and winter brings a new spring. Spring will bring in summer, and once again, it will be the boys of fall. I look forward to that. I look forward to doing this show with you in season 3. I look forward to wrapping everything up to the national championship. I look forward to enjoying Army Navy tomorrow. It's truly been a special year with special people, and I could not be any more blessed. The last thing I want to say before we wrap up is not football related, But today I'm back home in Hawaii. Unfortunately, my alma mater UNLV suffered a horrific tragedy this week, and I just wanted to shout out to UPD for the quick and timely response to it. To say my condolences to the families, and to say that life is so precious. On a happier note, the reason why I'm in Hawaii is that my dad, Mike Vieira, is retiring from Hawaiian Electric after 35 years of service. Today is his final day.
Woo!
Yeah, he's in his mid-50s. He's still a young man. Still got a lot of living to go. But he can finally wrap up this chapter on his life. My dad is one of the most important people, if not the most important person in my life. He is a father, a mentor, a travel companion, a friend. Uh, Anything that you want in a dad is all wrapped up into one, and that person is him. A lot of people like to joke that I'm Mike Jr. because I try to emulate him a lot, and it's a funny joke, but I also wear it as a badge of honor. I'm truly blessed to have him as a father, and I cannot wait to go off after this show and celebrate his achievement with him. So just want to shout out. I want to say I love you, Dad. See you in like an hour for your retirement party, and yeah. And for everyone watching, thanks again for tuning in. It's truly a joy. I get to come on here, talk with you, Bill, and just really indulge in this great game.
Also, my heartfelt condolences and my thoughts and prayers, and most importantly, my anger over lots of things that I think are more fixable than people think they are about the way our country treats gun violence, but that's a whole other show. Trust me, I can only imagine what you're going through and feeling that happening at your alma mater. And you said on a much, much happier note. Yes, remind your father just how young mid-50s are. Hey, your life is just beginning, Mr. Mike Vieira. But my father, went to his great reward beyond this life about, yeah, almost 13, soon to be 13 years ago, a little over 12 years ago. And I cannot tell you how much I wish I could talk football with him or travel with him or do whatever. I hope that you and your father spend a lot of time together in this time that he has to discover who he really is without all the pressures of, I mean, he still has to, I guess, provide and things like that, but it's not quite the same when you are able to step into the next phase of your life. We will talk Celebration Bowl next week, and we'll look back at Army Navy, where I am fairly confident that Army will find a way to win this game against a scrappy but slightly undermanned Navy squad. Once again, on behalf of everybody at Team MBS, and go Army, beat Navy, I would like to say it is indeed a pleasure, an honor, a privilege. I am very blessed to have you, Mr. Brock Vieira, or AKA Mike Jr. Vieira, as my co-host. And I look forward to, I have so many article ideas. So you can enjoy this day with your father, and then like tomorrow, expect a bunch of DMs from me. But so I'll be putting the following touches on my guys on the coaching carousel thing, which keeps changing. But so I keep having to like rework it. Oh, let me reword that. Let me move that. Okay, this guy's out. This guy's in. But it has been great. It has been great. Please, give your father a hug for me, and not like the other thing I told you to give anybody. This will work out better.
Much more sensible.
It's much more sensible and work out better. Thank you once again on behalf of Brock Vieira and Bill Carroll here at Team MBS Media. Please, everybody, have a wonderful day today.